Hi guys and welcome to Mini Kids. We're starting a new series this week looking at a little book in the Old Testament which is before Jesus called Esther. The book of Esther takes place in a time where God's people have been banished from the promised land. They've been exiled because they didn't love God and do as he commanded. So God's people have been scattered. Some of them have been captured by a country called Babylon. At the beginning of this story, which takes place in Babylon, King Xerxes is king. Look at him. He's very rich. He's sitting on a gold throne with a big robe and a gold crown on. He's very rich and he's very powerful. And he always gets his own way. In fact, his queen, Vashti, one day decided that he wasn't going to get his own way. So he threw her out and stopped her from being queen. Xerxes was so angry that she didn't do exactly what she was told that she was stopped from being queen. So Xerxes was on the lookout for a new queen. And that's where Esther comes in. Esther was a beautiful young woman. She was a Jew, which is one of God's people, one of Abraham's descendants. She had been brought up by her cousin Mordecai. She didn't have a mum and a dad. Mordecai was also a Jew, and he said to Esther when she was chosen to go to the palace, "Go, but don't tell anyone that you're Jewish. Don't tell anyone that you're one of God's people. Keep it a secret." So Esther was taken to the palace to audition to be queen, to see if the king would like her. And every day Mordecai would come and visit her in the courtyard of the palace to see how she was doing, to check that she was okay. He was always really kind and looked after. In fact, Mordecai was really lucky because one day when he'd come to visit Esther at the palace, he was sitting outside the courtyard again when he overheard some of the king's guards plotting something.
Hey, let's kill the king.
You wanted to kill the king? Mordecai told Esther, who had been chosen to be queen. Esther told the king, and the guards were taken off to prison.
Go to jail.
The king was so pleased that he got his advisors to make a note in the king's special records that Mordecai had saved him. The guards didn't kill the king like they'd planned because Mordecai had warned them. The next person we meet in this story is Haman. He was a very important man. He was one of the king's advisors, his top advisor, the top dog in the kingdom, only second to the king. He was so important that he issued a law that when he came past you, you had to bow down. And all the people in the land did, really, except for our friend Mordecai. Mordecai loved God. He knew that God had the honour, and he knew that men like Haman shouldn't be bowed to. Now, look at all these people bowing down to Haman. You'd think that would have made him happy, but Haman was so angry that Mordecai would not bow to him. So Haman was so angry with Mordecai. Not only did he want to get revenge on Mordecai, but on the whole of Mordecai's people, on all of the Jews. He was that angry. So he went to King Xerxes. He said, "My great king, there are a people who live in your land who always keep themselves separate. They don't do the things everyone else in our land does. They don't worship like we do. These people are the Jews, I think it would be best if they were got rid of. Here, have all this money, and let's write a law that says all the Jews shall be killed and driven out of the land. The king didn't really care about the Jews. He didn't really care about the money. I mean, look at his big seat, his big throne. He said, Haman, keep your money, but you're allowed to write this law. There's the law. So Haman wrote a law that all of the Jews in the land could be killed on a date that was to be set. The law was sent out to all the land so that everyone knew what was going on. Mordecai was dismayed when he heard the news. He was worried for all of his people. He prayed to God and he fasted. Then he went to see his cousin Esther. Esther was now the queen. He said to Esther, look, the king doesn't know that you're Jewish. He doesn't know that you are one of these people. You might not be safe either. You should go and speak to the king and ask him for help. Esther was frightened. She knew what had happened to the last queen. The king only did what he wanted. He wasn't kind and didn't do what other people asked. In fact, even if she visited the king without him inviting her, she could be killed. Esther was frightened. Mordecai said to her, look, God will rescue his people. Even if you don't help them, God will rescue his people. But maybe this is what you were sent to the palace to do. Maybe this is why you're queen, to save God's people. So Esther thought and prayed and asked her people to pray for her. She decided that she, even though it was dangerous, even though it might even cost her life, she would go to the king and ask him for help. We'll see next week what happens to Esther as she and Mordecai look to save her people.